Hello and welcome again to another Naked Englishman video. I suppose this is what do I call it? In support of or in conjunction with? I don't know what it's called, something. In which I record a video as well as my Naked Englishman podcast, audio podcast. By the way, interesting news that YouTube are going to be supporting podcasts. Not quite sure how it works, but apparently you can go to youtube.com/podcast and they're starting the infrastructure to support podcasting, complete with RSS feeds, which might not mean anything to a number of people, but it might mean something to some. I'm having a cup of coffee, which I often do in my Naked Englishman podcast, the audio podcast, and this is the sort of video version of it. And you may notice I'm wearing a rather lovely velvet jacket, which fits an absolute treat, which I found in a charity shop with Julia a week or so ago. And I can't remember how much it was. I think a tenner or something, something ridiculously cheap, and it's rather lovely. Julia and I have been invited to a friend of ours, Nigel's and Kelly, wedding anniversary. Can't remember what number it is. They're so young, you know, so young and carefree. It's probably only a couple of years. And so I thought I'd go dressed up a little bit. Why not? Got to do these things. Anyway, I've got a cup of coffee here and I'm going to chat to you. Now, when I was young, if you know my story, which I've shared in numerous places, I suppose, you will know that my mother, unfortunately, had a very bad upbringing, and she was an orphan in an orphanage. And it got to her in her middle life, I suppose. I don't know quite why, but these things, you know, they come back to you and they haunt you and they're part of you and they influence everything you do, your upbringing. So being born in an institution must have been quite horrific. And not having a mother and a parent in the same way that possibly you and I have. And everybody's got their own sort of stories. Anyway, sadly, she turned to drink to cope with it. And when my parents split up, mainly, I think, because she drank, and she became quite an obnoxious person when she drank. And I have a rather weird relationship with drink myself. I don't drink. It's not that I'm teetotal. I will enjoy a bottle of something, very rarely, like a bottle of beer, but I would never get myself intoxicated to the point that I couldn't get into a car and drive. I had this fear when bringing up my own children that if the house caught fire or if one of the kids fell down the stairs or I saw an accident in the street, if I was intoxicated to the point where it was illegal to drive, I wouldn't be able to help that person, get them to the hospital if I needed to, or to get the children out of the house if there was a fire, or, you know, whatever. And I felt that responsibility that I should never, ever be in that position because, you know, I would never be able to live with myself. People do drink and they get to the point where I just think it's irresponsible if you're unable to act, if you needed to act, because you're going to hate yourself that you were drunk. And you do hear these stories of drunken parents who've unfortunately allowed their children to tumble down the stairs or the house catch fire or whatever it is, and they don't know how to face themselves. And I suppose having an alcoholic mother brought all of that down to home. But the thing that my mother used to do was she was abusive, but not physically, but verbally. And she would tell me, I think because this was mirrored from her childhood, which she never used to speak to us about, and I wish she had until later on in life, because it would have made me understand what she was saying to me wasn't really directed at me, per se, a child that she actually loved. But when she was under the influence, she didn't see it that way. Her reasoned mind went out, and for whatever reason, I think she hated us and was quite abusive in telling us that we would never amount to anything. She told me numerous times that I was a squit. It was a rather horrible and painful expression. And as much as I would try and bat this away, when you're an 8, 9, 10-year-old child being tormented in this way, it stays with you and it plays on your self-confidence. And one of the things I used to do when I was 18 and I'd left home because I could not stand the alcoholic abuse any longer, was I read a whole load of these self-help books, you know, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon's Hill, Think and Get Rich, and numerous other more esoteric ones, things that would say, you know, the law of attraction. If you think about something, it will come to you, and all of this sort of stuff. And it was interesting because it did do some good for me. It made me believe in myself. There were so many books I can't remember, but I needed something to be my rock, I suppose. And I was reading all these things that would say that you are somebody special and that you can achieve great things. And I was desperately trying to combat what my mother particularly had said. My father wanted me to go into electronics, into something that I was just not interested in. And he was insistent. And I had this creative bent. I'd played with his Grundig reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I loved doing silly voices and performing. My father was a conjurer in his spare time, as an amateur. He was okay. He wasn't brilliant, but he was okay. I could see how the tricks worked, and so I could see that I could never do that myself because I'd seen my dad fumble with these tricks and knew how they worked. I was never really taken in, and so again, my confidence to sort of hide things became very difficult. I think in many ways that's why I do things like my Naked Englishman podcast and these, which talk about myself. In a way, it's a form of counselling. I bring to the place, to the public or to an arena, I talk about things in me because I don't like to hide stuff too much. I am a private person in many ways, but also an exhibitionist in other ways. And I suppose I'm just trying to find myself and establish myself and build my confidence. Even now in my late 50s, I'm still trying to find why, you know, that it's okay to be me and all of that. And of course, that's one of the reasons that I struggle with the comments when there are trolls out there or people who hate you because you say something which you may not 100% believe or understand or have thought through, but you say it anyway, and then people pounce on you because social media is like that, and that people, they have not walked in my lifestyle, life's thing, my shoes, and they don't know me, but I haven't walked in theirs to find out why they're so hateful of people who are trying. There seems to be a lot of people out there who are very hateful of people who are trying or seem to be successful when actually they're not. I'm not really successful at all. I have very little to call successes in my life, and I'm still desperately you see, I'm probably very much like the people who hate me and comment bad things. I'm probably very much like them. It's just that I try not to personalize and attack individuals. And I do a lot of sweeping statements. It's true, in the Naked Englishman, I will have very strong opinions about things, and there'll be very much sweeping statements. But I'm very honest in saying that that's what they are. I'm not necessarily attacking anybody individual. And sometimes people get very confused when they listen to my stuff because they'll think I'm, especially on the Naked Englishman, they may think I'm attacking them personally. And it's not a personal thing. It's a much grander thing. Anyway, these are the sort of partly reasons why I'd pick up these books, because I think the parenting that I received perhaps wasn't as great as possibly it could be. Yet I still love my parents and I still forgive them for their downfalls. You know, they were the only parents I got. You've got to make the best of everything. And they were lovely in many, many other ways. It's just certain, you know, to the kernel of my soul, I have this real self-confidence issue. Now you may think, hang on a minute, I'm looking at you now and you're dressed smartly, you seem to come over, you can more or less pull out a fairly decent sentence. And why should that be? And it is a lot of hard work in order to do this, and performance is, hiding behind the mask of something. Performing is a great thing. But what I wanted to get onto in this, and I don't want this to be too long and meandering like often my Naked Englishman podcasts can be, and I'm trying to be as succinct as I can. This thing about the law of attraction, of that what you think, you can manipulate your future. Now, believe you me, I am skeptical about religion. But religion is the same thing, this asking of God to do something for you. I'm also a little skeptical of when you pitch stuff out to the universe. I didn't used to be, because I would believe all this stuff. I would it would say, concentrate on something and it will come to you. The love of your life, the dream job. Well, making videos, going into a role in television was something that I very much wanted to do when I was very young. And I had these dreams, and I thought, that by holding these thoughts, by concentrating on it, by going into the silence, by doing all this stuff, I would find the answer. The silence out of the subconscious mind would tell you things. The universe would provide all of this nonsense. It seems to me now nonsense. And somebody only earlier this morning referenced somebody who was talking about their life in their latter years, as it were, and they were talking about the law of attraction and how you hold these thoughts. Now, I noticed that people who have been successful, for whatever reason, that things have just fallen into their lap, as does happen in life to certain people, but not everybody, clearly, can maybe attribute this because they did hold thoughts of their preferred job, their wonderful partner, of making money or whatever it is. And it so happened by perhaps coincidence, and they may put that down not to coincidence, but to the fact that they did, think these things. But there are plenty of us people who have believed this rubbish and gone, yeah, no, it's true, it really is happening. I will hold these thoughts for years and years and years. And it hasn't happened. And I just think there is a counter-argument to this, the law of attraction and, the magic of the mind and the subconscious will provide and the universe is there for you and that God will do all this stuff. And I think sometimes you've got to realise that this actually doesn't happen. I used to think it did for many, many years. And then you start to have the cold logic of reality start seeping into you to say, well, hang on a minute. Millions of people are doing this. Millions of people are following this creed and this logic and this so-called pseudoscience. We're all believing it and we're passionately going along with it. But these people who are doing all this, it's not happening to us. It's happening to those people over there. It must be something else that's going on. The people who are telling you that the law of attraction exists and you can make money and all you've got to do is because you've bought their book or you've bought their video or you've gone to their seminar, they're the ones who are making the money because they're selling you this myth that we all want to believe, that you can get something for nothing. And I don't know that this is true, really. I think there's coincidence. I think there is luck that some people, of course, there's billions of people on the planet, that some people will have things just drop into their lap. Things will just happen. And often there will be those people who you think that things have happened, that the success has come, and it seems to have happened, and you haven't seen the work behind. The swan is gliding, but the legs underneath the water are doing that. And I think that's often the case as well. And there's some people who are deluded and thinking, it is that my mind power has done it. But men, and by men I mean the human species, have been thinking of these things and writing about this and all this esoteric and spiritual stuff. And yet, we're still in the same place. These people haven't solved poverty. We're still in the same place where you have to work hard and on the whole, you're doing jobs you don't want to do, and you're trying desperately to fight against nature and other humans, and greed and avarice and all the sort of the errors of human nature that we all have, you know, our own hypocritical nature, that we want to be this, but it's a struggle to be that because of circumstances around us. And we all have that. And, you know, I think that there are those that are really, they don't know necessarily, they're conning us. They think that their life as a result of all of this, it's happened to them because they've had these wonderful thoughts and they've hung on to it. But by golly, people have tried, and myself included. And then you look around and you go, well, I'm not too sure about this, mate. I think a lot of this might be a bit of tosh. You've been very lucky, and just hold on to that luck. And just, you know, I was watching something by an interview with David Lean, the director, recently, and he was saying, you know, that he could go to all these exotic places in the world and he could paint with an incredible paint box, cinema. And he said, you know, I've just been lucky. And he may be incredibly talented and have brought to the cinema wonderful shots and new ways of doing things and all of that. And he may well be incredibly talented and all of that. But that wasn't enough, I don't think. You know, I mean, I'm thrilled and pleased that he was there, but there will be, of course, many millions of others who are equally talented or who would have had that gift or could have honed that gift, who didn't have the chance. The luck didn't fall in their place. And I think that's just reality, that we can't all be everything, that we perhaps, but what I'm not saying is that we shouldn't dream and that we shouldn't have goals and that we shouldn't try and that we shouldn't set our sights high, that we shouldn't just accept that life is hard and that's it. I definitely am not saying that, but I think that we ought to follow our mettle and go for it and give it a go, even though things may not work out. Because the last thing you want to get to is sitting in that care home at the age of 99 and regret and turn back and go, well, what if I hadn't given it a go? What if I hadn't tried? What if I'd listened to all the naysayers? So in some ways, those self-help books, although it may be a bit baloney and it may be rubbish, in some ways they do help you to give it a go and try and aim for the stars. And I think that's a very important thing. And that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video version of The Naked Englishman. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I hope to be back again with some other load of old rubbish to chat about. But anyway, my jacket is wonderful, and I'm very much looking forward to wearing it tomorrow with the lovely Julia at my side at a friend's anniversary. Should be fun. Thank you for watching.